Also, Bud Carson gets the word that you better look for some work.
Oh, I hate that word. And new heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield is welcomed home in style. Better show it to you.
A little shakeup in Cleveland. We're not talking about the team.
No, we're talking about the man that runs the team. Now, go figure this, okay? Figure Browns owner Art Modell. 2 years ago, he fired Marty Schottenheimer, one of the top coaches in the league, because Schottenheimer refused to hire an offensive coordinator. Then he went out and he hired Bud Carson, another defensive coach, to replace Schottenheimer. Carson hired an offensive coordinator, but the offense got worse. So today, Modell fired Carson and replaced him with the offensive coordinator. Art, what are you doing?
Football has been my sport, my love, my passion for 30 years. And even though I cannot coach, I have some instincts. And what I saw, for whatever reason, I saw a deterioration taking place that we had to stop the hemorrhaging.
In 2 years, Carson 12, 14, and 1, but this year the Browns are 2 and 7, coming off a 42-0 trouncing by Buffalo. Replacing Carson on an interim basis, offensive coordinator Jim Schaffner.
And success breeds success. So we need to put the best players out there to stem the tide. That would be my objective. Now, to play younger players for the future, that's a thought, but to me, that's not the major thing right now. We need to stem the tide and play better.
So now while the Browns struggle, Marty Schottenheimer is flourishing in Kansas City. Next hour, we'll have a report on yesterday's Raiders-Chiefs game. Could the Rams be on the road to recovery?
Report in just a moment.
A shadow of doubt running through anybody's mind. And we all just played together and won this game as a team.
Had a chance, and we will. We'll rebound from this thing.
Obviously, Art Shell was not a happy man yesterday. Kansas City coach Marty Schottenheimer was. And it's interesting, 2 years ago, Schottenheimer was the coach of the Cleveland Browns. The owner there, Art Modell, fired him, said he wanted him to hire an offensive coordinator, and Schottenheimer wouldn't do it. Meantime, he hires Bud Carson, another defensive coach. Carson then hires an offensive coordinator who puts in a new offense, and it's worse than the old offense. So today, Carson is fired and replaced with the offensive coordinator, Jim Schaffner, first NFL coach to get fired this year. The Browns are 2 and 7. They lost to Buffalo 42-0 yesterday. And there's Marty Schottenheimer, who started the whole thing laughing at Kansas City.
Can you run that by us again, Fred?
What? What was that? Basketball.
This Tar Heel's wife is a news reporter in Cleveland.
Bud Carson's wife is a news reporter?
I just informed that
he's a nice man from North Carolina, and he'll be nicer tomorrow.
And he'll be able to watch her a lot.
Good.
Hey, Cleveland, this Bud isn't for you anymore. The 2 and 7 Browns, a day after their worst home loss ever, have fired head coach Bud Carson and replaced him with their long-ago first-round draft choice offensive coordinator Jim Schaffner. For Carson, the writing literally was on the wall yesterday. Last year, the former Ram defensive coordinator was the second oldest rookie coach in NFL history, and the Browns went to the AFC title game. But 1990 was different, and now there's a different coach.
That was not my intent at all, coming here or anything. At my stage of my career, I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm very disappointed that Bud and I didn't get this done.
Even if Bud Carson is not still with us, the Monday evening quarterback remains, and with newfound respect for the Rams secondary, he reminds you that quarterback Bobby Humphrey spells his name Humpher.
Best.
We'll be right back. Sports Jim Hill. He'll recap the Rams and Raider games, and the first football season, the first football coach of the season is fired. You rent. Happened again.
And you rent from month to month or year to year. Such is the case with Bud Carson. Cleveland Brown head coach Bud became the first coaching casualty of the year today. Carson was replaced by offensive coordinator Jim Schaffner. Carson was fired the day after the Browns' worst home loss in team's history. He finished with a record of 12-14-1. The Browns played in the AFC Championship game last year, but this year things haven't gone well at all.
Well, a lot of good things happened to us last year. They haven't happened to us this year. The penalty that took the touchdown away last night against Ozzie Newsome was a ridiculous penalty. It should never have been called, was not a penalty. But when your things are going bad and you're losing, invariably things like that happen.
Meanwhile, the Raiders battled the weather and a tough Kansas City football team yesterday in Arrowhead Stadium. Worst home loss in team's history. He finished with a record of 12-14-1. The Browns played in the AFC Championship game last year, but this year things haven't gone well at all.
Well, a lot of good things happened to us last year. They haven't happened to us this year. The penalty that took the touchdown away last night against Ozzie Newsome was a ridiculous penalty. It should never have been called, was not a penalty. But when your things are going bad and you're losing, invariably things like that happen.
Meanwhile, the Raiders battle the weather and a tough Kansas City
holiday time.
That's right. Nobody loves him. Our producer, Buddy Singer, believes that this is one of the most important sports stories of our time. Bud Carson.
He is a Cleveland fan?
No, he's a guy named Buddy.
Oh, okay.
Bud Carson is no longer the coach of the Cleveland Browns. They fired him. The writing was on the wall yesterday, almost literally. The second-year coach of the Browns dumped by them this morning after a 2-7 start after the team's worst home beating ever, a 42-zip loss to the Bills. The new coach is Cleveland assistant Jim Schaffner, who said he never wanted the job.
That was not my intent at all, coming here or anything. At my stage of my career, I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm very disappointed that Bud and I didn't get this done.
Hottest sports town in America at the moment, Atlanta. First the Olympics, now the heavyweight.
Defense saw 4 players selected to the Pro Bowl. That came as a surprise to no one. Carson is a noted defensive wizard, stemming from his part in molding the steel curtain in Pittsburgh that won Super Bowls 9 and 10. However, 1990 has been a year of despair for the Dog Pound. After ranking 4th in points allowed last year, the Browns have fallen to 27th. On the other side of the ball, a beleaguered offensive line has often left Browns quarterbacks running in fear. Now the reins have been handed to offensive coordinator Jim Schaffner, a former Browns player who was quarterback coach during the days of the Cardiac Kids. He says he won't turn things over to the youngsters as a prescription for this team's cardiac arrest.
So we need to put the best players out there to stem the tide. That would be my objective.
Schaffner is a former defensive back for the Browns. If you look at these numbers, you can see why the Browns have struggled this year. Keep in mind, the offensive line has been banged up, and they never replaced 2 former starters who retired. 2 others were out with knee injuries. The team also had 5 defensive starters with contract holdouts during the preseason. In all, it was a mess. But I also feel sorry for Bud Carson. Here's a guy who's 59 years old, waited so long to become a head coach. He'll never become another head coach in the NFL. It'll come back to haunt him. Plus, they're not going to hire somebody who's soon to be 60 years old. But the players stood behind him, and I think that's a good example of just what kind of impact he had on this team.
A lot of guys came out on the record today. Felix Wright on the defense said he really felt that Carson never had complete control of the team in terms of being given the reins from upstairs to have control of the team. Michael Dean Perry said the problems we had could have been solved during the offseason. Again, the residue of what happened from preseason. Guys standing up and feeling very badly that Bud got the axe.
Well, you also had Mike Pagel and you also had Bernie Kosar. There's a controversy there, but you know, is that the difference, though? Firing Bud Carson, does that really make a matter this year? I don't believe it does.
Well, we got to shake up the troops some way. Let's go from pros to colleges. Talking about shake-ups, you have got a choice, Dan. You can either handicap elevator races.
I don't know how good that Browns team is. Not very good with or without the right coach.
Well, as you mentioned, Nick, they had all kinds of problems coming into the season. And, you know, that comment that the unnamed official made, I think, is very interesting. I wondered if they were indeed having those kinds of problems. They did not look good against Denver last year in the AFC Championship, and things seem to be going downhill.
No, you know, if they say the same, other teams looking better. Look at Pittsburgh. They're a great team.
On the move. Anyway, you think the elections are going to be tough tomorrow?
It's this way. We'll start it off with this. Until today, not a single head coach in the NFL had been fired. But today, this guy was fired. That's right. Bud Carson suffered an embarrassing 42 loss to the Bills. Bye, Bud. That's what they were saying. Why was he fired? 2-7 record. Bud had very few final words during the day today, but they did catch him.
It's over. It's done with. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Cleveland. You know, what can I say?
You know, when you get down to the bottom, there ain't but one place to go, and that's up.
Truer words were never spoken, Ozzie Newsome. New Browns coach is Jim Schaffner. He's going to have to put up with this kind of stuff. They had a block punt, a block kick yesterday, 5 turnovers, and, of course, they lost. All right, around the NFL.
Wayne, you want to come over? We're going to talk football.
Okay, let's talk football.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, tough day for this guy right up here. The axe fell this morning on Cleveland Browns head coach Bud Carson, much to the surprise of no one, really. The Carson-led Browns have been pathetic and hit rock bottom yesterday, losing 42-zip to Buffalo. This was Bud's last day on the sideline as the Browns head coach. As we look at this video right here, Carson's club did everything wrong, including this breakdown of special teams, which brought out this reaction for the soon-to-be-fired head coach. It's got uglier for the Browns and Bud, who leaves with a 12-14-1 record in less than 2 seasons. This year, the Browns are 2-7, and that was more than enough for Cleveland's longtime owner, Art Modell, who couldn't convince the 59-year-old to walk away on his own.
Even though I cannot coach, I have some instincts. And what I saw, for whatever reason, I saw a deterioration taking place that we had to stop the hemorrhaging.
You know, I knew that there was a good chance that this would happen, but you know, there was no way I could there's just no way I could look myself in the mirror if I quit. I wasn't going to quit.
Schaffner, the new head coach. Now, New York Giants are still unbeaten, and after a slow start tonight in Indy.
2 years ago, Browns owner Art Modell fired coach Marty Schottenheimer when Schottenheimer refused to hire an offensive coordinator. Schottenheimer was replaced by this man, Bud Carson, who did hire Jim Schaffner as offensive coordinator. Well, today, Modell fired Carson and replaced him with Schaffner. The Browns' 2-7 record is their worst since 1984. Carson was in the second year of a 3-year contract. He led Cleveland to the AFC title game last year. It was fight night at the Forum, and no, the Kings were not playing, but
they need to bend a little bit in order to have his best years.
34!
Felt that a change had to be made.
Football has been
Coordinator Jim Schaffner named to replace Carson on an interim basis.
Failure breeds failure.
He has clock is ailing. The writing was on the banners, if not on the wall, when the Brownies went down 42-0 to Buffalo on Sunday, but the former Ram defensive coordinator was not willing to walk out.
I knew at that point we got the whole football team fell apart, and I knew that there was, I knew that there was a good chance that this would happen, but there was no way I could, there's just no way I could look myself in the mirror if I quit. I wasn't going to quit.
The latest from the Strawberry Box.
CNN Sports Late Night is Monday Night Football, the Giants and the Colts. And look who's still living in a perfect world. This Bud gets put on ice by the Browns, but
There's just no way I could look myself in the mirror if I quit. I wasn't going to quit.
we've got the great debate in college football. Who's number one? Who's
again? Notre Dame.
Enjoy the NFL high life. Bud Carson felt the ultimate low of the coaching profession today when he was fired by the Cleveland Browns. The league's first pink slip of the year comes as really no surprise amidst the Browns' disastrous season. On the heels of the club's most embarrassing home loss in history, Carson is now history. Nick Charles has more.
Bud Carson became the first coaching casualty of the NFL season, and you could see this one coming yards, if not miles away. What drove the spike into his heart was the Browns getting waxed 42-0 at home Sunday.
I would say it was the icing, you want to call it that, Jim, on the cake. It was embarrassing for all of us. It was embarrassing for the coaches, embarrassing for the players. I was terribly distraught.
Carson said after Sunday's game the last thing he wanted to do is be part of a football team that can't win, meaning because of him. And now he isn't.
You can tell by the way people are staying away from you and not talking to you that you got to do something. You got to win. That's just still the bottom line in this business, we didn't do it. We needed to win last night. We didn't do it.
Carson gambled Sunday by starting Mike Pagel at quarterback and never giving franchise QB Bernie Kosar a call. But nobody could generate a single point the entire gloomy afternoon. And now the job is left to offensive coordinator Jim Schaffner, at least until this lost season mercifully ends.
I'm very disappointed that Bud and I didn't get this done. You start thinking about it.
Carson had been hired before last season because of his defensive reputation, which included building the famed steel curtain in Pittsburgh. So it was his defensive players Monday who rallied to his defense, while others figured a change could only help.
I don't feel it was the right decision, but that's Art Modell's decision. He owns his football team, not Raymond Claiborne's.
When did it go wrong? It's not completely done. I mean, we can still salvage, a chance for the playoffs. And it sounds funny, and it sounds like just being overly optimistic. But hey, we're only 3 games out.
The whole football team fell apart, and I knew that there was, I knew that there was a good chance that this would happen. But there was no way I could. There's just no way I could look myself in the mirror if I quit. I wasn't going to quit.
I was hoping and praying that Bud would turn it around. Week in and week out, I was waiting, but we kept slipping and slipping.
Nick Charles, CNN Sports.
The Browns probably should be better off than 2-7, but Carson's season snowballed out of control from the start. 5 defensive starters were holdouts during the preseason. 2 offensive linemen retired. 2 others were out with injuries, but, of course, winning is what it's all about. Hannah?
And here's a case in point.